Miss Lemomo, your malaria test is negative. I think you could be stressed. Cancel all your appointments and take a good rest. That was 17th January 2017, a day I shall never forget. I had traveled out of the country for business. That morning, I woke up in my hotel room. I sat on my bed, feet firmly rooted on the floor, my hands tightly squeezed on my laps, and I listened. I was wondering, but I didn't know for what. I felt lost. I felt as if I was in a vacuum. My body felt strange. I felt strange. I felt as if I had two bodies, one sitting with me and one literally hovering above me. I felt lost to the point of disorientation. I slowly got up, showered, dressed, and went to see a doctor. Coming from a malaria-prone region, I immediately requested for malaria test. And so on that day, I did exactly as the doctor ordered. I went back to my hotel room. I tried to sleep, but I was anxious. I was sleepless. And above all, my body was aching. The next morning, I said to myself, this must be malaria. Back to the doctor I went. The test came back negative. He sent me back to my hotel room with painkillers and my sleeping pills. Yes, I went back the third day. And once again, the tests were negative. Like myself, he was getting worried now. But this time, he offered to run a full blood test. And he sent me back to my hotel room with orders for more rest, and this time, drink more water. I did go back on the fourth day. He looked at me and said, Miss Lemomo, I've run every test I can think of, except a pregnancy test. I can't get pregnant, I quickly said. He looked a bit surprised. And why can't you get pregnant? I explained to him that 2 years back, I had done a hysterectomy. I'll get to that. He leaned forward, he looked at me, and he said, welcome to menopause. I now remember he actually had a cheeky, devious smile. I immediately had a flashback to my biology lesson when I was 17. My biology teacher had said that menopause marked the end of the menstrual cycle when a woman's fertility period came to an end. So at 17, with all the period pains, accidents, cramps, mood swings, boy, I couldn't wait to get to menopause. So I started counting. My countdown to menopause began at 17. My thoughts were interrupted by the doctor's voice. Miss Lemomo, I'm going to place you on hormone replacement therapy for a period of 3 to 6 weeks. Hormone replacement therapy actually replaces the estrogen that the body cannot produce during menopause. So on that day, 17th January 2017, my menopause safari began. And if you have been on an African safari, you know what that entails. It's a long, bumpy, rough road. And that's exactly how my first 2 years of menopause were. So fast forward, I was placed on the hormone replacement therapy. But before I go into my safari, did you know there are 4 stages to menopause? Did you? 1, what is called premature menopause. Premature menopause happens to women between the ages of 25 to 35. These statistics were given by the Tanzania Demographic Health Survey of 2015. 2% of women are in menopause at that age bracket. Phase 2 is early menopause. Early menopause happens with women between the ages of 40 and 43. Again, the same survey by the Tanzania Demographic Health Survey showed that 6 to 9% of women are in their early menopause. The third stage is perimenopausal. Peri means around. So at that time, you're slightly going around menopause. At that time, a woman will still get her periods, but very irregularly. And the body is also slowly transitioning into menopause. Lastly, menopause itself. You become menopausal when you are 12 months straight without getting your periods. And at that time, of course, you don't have periods and you can't bear children. So on my menopause safari, I was immediately placed on the hormone replacement therapy. But unfortunately for me, my symptoms and the treatment didn't go well. So I decided to contact and probably consult one of the most famous but uncertified doctor, Dr. Google. So Dr. Google informed me of 2 things, very important for me at that stage. 1, menopause can be managed. There is no cure for menopause because it's not a disease, it's just a condition. But the beauty about it is it can be managed with natural remedies. Second, symptoms. My gynecologist never discussed symptoms with me. So from Dr. Google, I learned that a woman's body can go through 40 symptoms at the same time. At that stage, I was in month 1, month 2, I only had about 3 to 4 symptoms, which I could hardly manage. I started to wonder, how will I manage 40 symptoms? So, with the situation not getting better, I went back to my doctor. For 3 weeks, I lay in my bed, literally in a vegetative state. I couldn't move, I couldn't think, my body was aching throughout. I was full of nausea, I had itchy skin, burning sensation, loss of appetite. But my doctor insisted, your body will adjust, keep trying. So once again, I went to a famous doctor, Dr. Google. So Dr. Google told me that the latest hormone replacement therapy, as I said, is the replacement of your estrogen, is from a yam extract. And so on that day, my wild goose chase for yams began. I even ordered yams as far as from Nigeria. I'm not kidding you. But my situation was still not getting better. As if it wasn't enough, depression decided to get in. She strolled in. She didn't bother to knock. She made herself extremely comfortable. And so at that moment, I said to myself, me no pause. Actually, when you break menopause, that's exactly what it says. Me no pause. I decided to go into me no pause with great fight. I'm not giving up. At that time, Besides my doctor and Dr. Google, I hadn't spoken to anybody else. I didn't think anybody would understand me. How could I explain what I'm going through to anybody else to understand? It never crossed my mind that any other woman is going through this. How can I explain to someone when I didn't even understand myself? Unfortunately, that threw me deeper into the deep end of depression. So by the end of 2018, I was in total despair. I couldn't take it anymore. So I was contemplating on suicide. Actually, the menopause group expert shows that, or indicates, women between the ages of 45 to 54 have a high rate of suicide of 6%, the highest in the last 20 years. And so I was actually in that group. As if it's not enough, I went back to my doctor, and Dr. Google too. Once again, they tell me, do persevere, Leina. Menopause goes between 3 months to 15 years. And if you're lucky, yours could be short. I know they're trying to encourage me, but I was already in year 1, going to year 2. I couldn't manage. How would I manage another 14 years? Yes, you guessed it right. It drove me deeper into depression. At that time, as I said, I hadn't spoken to anyone. But I happened to run into a friend who I hadn't seen for many years. She actually became the first person I talked to. I explained to her what I was going through. She told me, let me look around, I know the alternatives. A few days later, she came back to me. She said, I found out that Indian women make infused turmeric tea to manage the hot flashes and the itchy skin. Well, what have I got to lose? I ran to the supermarket, bought myself a kilo of turmeric. I had nothing to lose, right? And trust me, 2 weeks later, the hot flashes had subsided and the itchiness had actually gone. Fast forward as I stand in front of you today, most of the symptoms are gone. When I was going through my menopause, it also reminded me of my grandmother. I'm sure you all have grandmothers. They always complain, my body's aching, my head is aching. I tell you, at 48, I took the cake. I couldn't sit, I couldn't lie, I couldn't stand. Every part of my body was aching, literally from head to toe. So I was constantly feeling hazed and dazed because I was either in painkillers or mild sleeping pills. At some point, I think I was totally high. So when I started my turmeric infusion tea, I saw the great difference it made for me. So immediately I stopped taking the hormone replacement therapy. But in all this, it might sound very gloom and gloomy, but life does give you one moment in life where you can laugh at yourself. And even when I was going through this, I did have a few moments I did laugh about my menopause. I remember one time I went for a meeting. As I got into the office, everybody stared at me. Is it raining outside? I asked, why? You're soaked. That's one of the symptoms. You sweat heavily. So I hadn't noticed that I was sweating. I was literally drenched to the skin. If your patience hasn't been tried, try driving a menopausal woman. In my Rotary Club, half of the women are menopausal. So we have a running joke in the club. Welcome to the Hot Mamas Club. Yeah. So you might be wondering, why am I standing here today? After going through that menopause safari, I made it my life mission to talk about it to every woman and man that I meet. Actually, a good example was very recently. I put a status on my WhatsApp status. I immediately had a conversation with one of my male friends. His first reaction was, and I quote him, "This topic can be disrespectful to my wife." I said, no. So we started talking up and down. We had messages. And I'm so happy that at the end of the day, as I stand here today, he's one of my first male friends who wants to learn about menopause because he wants to help the women around in his life. Sex discussion was and is still a taboo in Africa. Can you try and imagine having that discussion of menopause in an African setting? I think the closest this comes to is women go mad after childbearing age. If you're African, you've heard that. And it's true. I was personally going mad. In every sense of the word, literally, I was feeling mad. With 47 symptoms, support groups for women are important. Talking about menopause is important. We think it's only here in Africa or in Tanzania that menopause is not talked about. But even in the Western world, it's taken a few prominent women like Mrs. Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Hailey Berry, to talk about menopause, give their experiences, so they also feel that taboos and myths, even within their society, can be broken. We need to break this taboo. We have many important things in life that we plan. Menopause should be part of it. When we plan of women health activities, such things as breast cancer, cervical cancer, keep fit, healthy eating, menopause should be part of it. Because menopause is one of the most misunderstood phases in a woman's life. But things are getting better. Small talk, as we say in Kiswahili, a small drop fills a bucket. Yeah, so forgetfulness is one of it. So her boss trivialized those facts. But the court did recognize that this is an important part of her life, and she got compensation. So when we have these discussions, let's make sure it's not a singular discussion. Let's involve our husbands, our fathers, our sons, our uncles, so we can have a comfortable menopause. During menopause, you've got to live healthy. So I walk 3 times a week. I eat healthy. I drink lots of water. But I have probably 2 symptoms left out of 34. Actually, I identified with 34 symptoms during my menopause. I only have 2 now. A bit of forgetfulness here and there. A bit of weight, but hey, I don't look bad, right? I can live with it. Yeah. So, before I finish my menopause safari, I'll pose a question. Did you know that 18th October is the World Menopause Day? I see people's heads shaking. Yes. Nobody knows that. Yet it's one of the most important phases in a woman's life. So as we celebrate the International Women's Day, as we celebrate Mother's Day, as we celebrate any other day with the same pomp and celebration, let's celebrate the World Menopause Day. Thank you.